Now, I know a lot of you have wanted to know my opinions on the Netflix Daredevil series, and I'm finally ready to talk about it. After about a month of waiting. Listen, having a full-time job and producing video for the web does not leave a lot of time for binge watching. Long story short, it's the Daredevil we've always wanted to see in live action, and I can't wait to see what they do with Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist now. But one thing that actually surprised me was the level of violence in this series. It is a brutal show to watch at times. They don't skip on the blood and gore at all. I'm used to this sort of thing in comics, but I guess it's more impactful when it's in live action. This show is clearly aimed at adults, but aside from the violence, it's pretty tame for an MA-rated show. It's almost as if they're being cautious that kids might be watching this, but should they be cautious? I think we can all agree that since the beginning, comic books have been designed as entertainment for children. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. Kids need entertainment too. Hell, sometimes good entertainment meant for kids can transcend its original audience and reach an older crowd. Some of the best Disney cartoons are like that. Now, as the comic book industry grew, more and more writers and artists tried to skewer their work to an older crowd. Probably thinking that the people who read Superman comics as a kid probably now want to see a more mature story told now that they're much older. Though they still find ways to tell stories that kids can read as well. But sometimes they do go a little too far and you end up with books like The Killing Joke. Great story. I would not hand this to a kid whose only experience of Batman was the Brave and the Bold cartoon, if you know what I mean. And of course, sometimes you go too far in the opposite direction and you get something like Teen Titans Go. It's good for kids, but if you're weaning on the more mature storytelling of Marv Wolfman and George Perez in the 80s, you're not going to like this. So superheroes are forever stuck in this PG-13 zone. They can't get too violent and graphic, otherwise they risk alienating the children, and they can't get too campy and colorful, otherwise they risk alienating the cool older crowd. Now, for the most part, most mainstream superhero comic books are by default PG-13, or T as it were. The most you'll get in an average superhero comic is a lot of blood and a woman in very little clothing. But sometimes they do get really close to the R mature line. But while we can get comics that really go closer and closer to that R-rated territory and sometimes even cross it, we'll never get a mainstream movie that goes that far. We'll never get that Old Man Logan story we really want. The best example in recent memory of PG-13 ruining a project like this was Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. Really. Mortal Kombat, as we all know, is violent as all get out. It's the reason why we have ratings on video games. But Warner Brothers wasn't too comfortable putting their pillars of all that is right and just in a game with decapitations and disemboweling, so they neutered the hell out of all the graphic stuff. The result was a very bloodless, very soft game. It wasn't a Mortal Kombat game by any stretch of the imagination, even though the characters were there, and it didn't give DC fans anything worth remembering. Now, of course, there have been attempts to make superheroes darker in the past, most infamously after Watchmen Dark Knight Returns, we got the 90s. But things were just ridiculous then. More recently, there have been better strides in that era. In addition to the Daredevil show, we've had 2 rated R Punisher movies, and the upcoming Batman Arkham Knight is going to be rated M. But things are still not going too extreme. These are still superhero tales, and Marvel and DC really can't risk doing anything that will result in letters and complaints. And while these examples have been pretty violent, that's pretty much all they were. You're not going to see things like, graphic sex and nudity. Because remember, in America, violence is okay, but don't you dare show a female nipple. Plus, aside from saying shit, Daredevil didn't even have bad language. They didn't even drop the F-bomb. Now, do I think the PG-13ification of society is bad? Absolutely. It flat out ruins action movies and horror movies, especially those that were once R-rated territory. But what about superheroes? Well, to be honest, superheroes need to be PG-13. They need to be able to reach kids and adults at the same time, and cutting off half of your audience is never a good thing. I think it was Michael Chabon who said that comic books need to start targeting adolescents more. This way you get them hooked young, and by the time they're adults, maybe they can start making the comics and making better decisions with the stories that are in them. Or they get jobs that pay a lot and buy more statuettes or really expensive merchandise. Or they learn how to make a video camera and tell the world what comics to read and not read. And this doesn't mean we'll get neutered versions of our favorite heroes either. Really good writers and artists will know how to work within these limitations to tell really good stories. They already are. And I don't think things are going to get extreme where we'll have a G-rated Deadpool or hard R Green Lantern, nor should we ever. But keeping it in PG-13 gives us just enough wiggle room that we can go either way. And I think that's perfect. And honestly, I'd just rather see a good Deadpool story, as opposed to a bad Deadpool story that's covered with violence and blood and boobies. It's nice, but It's not going to make the story better. What do you guys think? How adult should superhero stories be? Let me know down below or anywhere on social media. Also, TeePublic. Yep, we sell t-shirts now with our faces on it. And they're only $14 this week, so go click that link. And of course, like if you like, subscribe if you really like, share this video with your friends. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Today's episode is going to deal with the concept of creator rights and proper compensation. Now this is actually a pretty heavy topic, and it's honestly one that I don't think I'm qualified to talk about. But I'm going to talk about it anyway because I feel like this is an important topic, and the more people who know about it, the better. A lot of people do. A lot of people think that, you know, having that be her big twist, the fact, you know, she has regrets about motherhood, which I don't think she does. You know,
that's this whole thing that I just didn't need to know.